Rick, you turn the mics on?
Mic's on.
I'll go voice this guy.
We're gonna call to order the city council meeting for Monday, March 4th, 2024. And please stand and join us for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, those of you that are here and obviously on camera, we will try to use our outdoor voices. We are not shouting at you. We are trying to project so that those watching us via Facebook or YouTube TV can hear what we're saying, given the area that we are in and no microphones up at us. So roll call, Amanda, nice one up.
Tim Petrie.
Here.
Donnie Jamelonis. Here. Scott Steckmeister.
Here.
Adam Wachowski.
Here.
Jeff Delty.
Here.
Tracy Coach.
Here.
Bill Leclerc.
Here.
Marla Luther.
Here. All right, everyone's present, meaning we can skip over number 4. We're gonna go right to the public hearing. We have 2 of them. The first one is a public hearing on conditional use permit application by Hawk Battery Energy Storage System proposed, for a parcel located in the I-2 zoning district at the Woodland Industrial Park, which is parcel 053-233-404-010.01, located on the west side of Woodland Drive, approximately 1,000 feet north of State Highway 310. The recommended action is a motion to approve the conditional use permit application as recommended by the Plan Commission. Prior to us getting into the public hearing, of which there will be 3 calls for members from the audience to speak, we will get a little background information from Greg, and then we will go to the public hearing.
Okay. Council, at your last regular meeting, did hear a presentation from representatives of Tenaska, the lead entity on this proposed battery energy storage system at the industrial park. Subsequent to that, this matter came before the Plan Commission at its February meeting. And the Plan Commission and staff are recommending, well, the Plan Commission is recommending approval of the conditional use permit with conditions as listed. There have been 2 relatively minor changes, I believe, subsequent to the Plan Commission recommendation, and those are identified in blue in the conditional use permit document that you have in front of you. There are 21 enumerated conditions for this proposed use at the industrial park. We do have representatives of Tenaska here this evening, as at their last appearance, Jared Pitts, is spokesman for the group, and unless there are no objections, they have about a 2 or 3 minute introductory statement regarding the project, and then certainly open it up for public hearing. Jared? Yeah.
Good evening. Good to see you again. My name is Jared Pitts, and I'm the Director of Product Development for Tenaska. I'm also joined by several colleagues here, Scott McPherson, David Jakubiak, and Eric Calisto, all part of our project team. All right, I wanted to thank you for coming here this evening, and particularly given there's so much on the minds here in Two Rivers. I wanted to first begin and note that the hearts of every member of our Hawk Energy Storage team are with the community during this difficult time. And we're relatively new to Two Rivers, but seeing the commitment from leadership, from responders, from volunteers has truly been remarkable. And you have a great community here, which we hope to be a part of. So I'm here tonight to ask you, the City Council, for your support for our proposed project. The last time I spoke with you, we delved into details and talked about the ways our project will help make the local grid more resilient and demand for power increases and our power resources move towards bigger amounts of wind and solar. Then, a few weeks later, here on February 22nd, MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, which is responsible for ensuring reliability here in Wisconsin, as well as other states and regions, released a remarkable forecast. According to MISO's report, as of today, wind and solar make up approximately 20% of the region's energy mix. And MISO is forecasting that by 2042, that number will grow to 80% of the region's annual supply. Additionally, the report notes as soon as next year, the grid may start facing shortfalls, which are anticipated to grow as high as 5,000 megawatts by 2028. So in the plainest terms, what this means is that on the hottest days of summer and the coldest days of winter, there will be increased likelihood of reliability issues such as rolling brownouts as the grid operators seek to balance available power with the demand. This is where energy storage becomes indispensable, because when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining, batteries can be charged so that when power is needed, batteries can deliver it quickly and pollution-free. This is not a theoretical proposition. Twice in the last year, once during a summer heat wave and also during a winter cold snap, batteries have stabilized the Texas power grid. And I saw this firsthand in Dallas, where I live with my family. So there is no doubt we need reliable storage projects. And so the question then becomes, where and how do we build these types of projects? And I wanted to first start off by saying that I've worked on many projects across the country, and rarely do we have an opportunity like we have here in Two Rivers. We have proposed building the Hawk Battery Storage Project in an industrial park close to an existing substation, which will let us draw power from the grid when it is available and deliver it back when it is needed. But having a good location like this is nothing if you don't have neighbors who are okay with the project and a community with leadership and staff who are welcoming, working together to ensure the project is designed, constructed, and operated safely. I believe this collaboration with the community is demonstrated by our team hosting an open house in early February, having initial meetings with the fire department, and working with the planning department and plan commission to put in place over 20 conditions this project will need to adhere to if this permit is approved. I am proud that our team has engaged closely with these stakeholders to lay a foundation for the future success of this project. So in closing, the Hawk Energy Storage is a proposed 150 megawatt battery storage facility. At full capacity, it will have enough energy to power the peak demand of about 100,000 homes. The project represents a $250 million investment in the local economy and will have a total footprint of less than 10 acres. When operational, it will strengthen the electric grid while also increasing the local tax base without increasing traffic and with no pollution. So I ask you for your support this evening in helping bring this project to Two Rivers. Thank you.
I do have one question for you before we go to the public hearing. When you establish this, are you gonna be using new batteries, or are these gonna be old batteries, used batteries? Do you know?
Yeah, so when on the initial install, we plan to use new batteries for the project.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we will open it up to the public hearing. Anyone wishing to solely speak on this topic and this topic only, please step up to the podium, my right, your left, state your name and address for the record, and we will have 3 calls. We are opening up call number 1. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Kenton Langman. I live in Manitowoc, but I own the property at 4505 Roundy Drive, which is from the Two Rivers Automotive. I've got a few concerns that are both for safety reasons and financial reasons. I've been doing some reading on this. A company called Baker Risk Resource Center, they do studies and make assessments for the insurance industry concerning insuring property. They listed a few things that they claim are myths about this system. Myth number 1, there are standards that risk managers and facility managers can use to guide them towards creating policies and processes. Those standards, like the National Fire Protection Association, have been published and continue to be refined. There are fewer standards and forms of guidance regarding energy storage systems compared to other industries. Myth number 2, failure rates of the best battery storage facilities are well known and published. No, Currently, the communication of data of the state of failure rate research could be better. Publicly available data on best reliability is limited and inconsistent, and much of the recorded information was collected in highly controlled and fixed conditions. Due to the variety of real-world use, this data can be unhelpful in determining actual risk. Myth number 3, lithium-ion fires are similar to other industrial fires and don't require specific planning. No, an important concept when talking about the lithium-ion batteries and their associated risks is thermal runaway. This physical damage to a lithium-ion battery cell, degradation due to extreme temperatures, aging, or poor battery maintenance are among the many potential causes of thermal runaway. Once triggered, thermal runaway is a chain reaction within the battery that leads to an uncontrolled self-heating state that can result in a violent ejection of gas, shrapnel, smoke, fire, and potential explosion. They go on to list a number of other myths. These I thought were the most important. My concern again is for safety and financial. Is there a proposed radius for safety around this plant? For example, the nuclear plants have a 10-mile radius. Obviously, we wouldn't need something that large, but has that been considered? Be it 1,000 feet, quarter mile, 2 miles, whatever it might be. There has been an explosion in an Australian test plant on August 2nd of 2021. It took 4 days to put this fire out, and 150 firemen. The fire was contained to 2 battery packs, and although the fire was contained in 4 days, there were sparks that would reignite the blaze for multiple days thereafter. What about insurance? This report was written by a company who makes recommendations to insurance companies. Currently, I have my business insured for property damage and also for business loss in case the company has to shut down. If there is an issue, say there's a fire, explosion, whatever, and they've got to evacuate a certain area, if it's determined by the council that they should be doing that, how much study has been put into that? I couldn't find any information concerning that online. Perhaps you have some. I also think there would be a drop in property value. I don't think there'll be an increase in property value because of it being near a power plant. Now, I don't really know the solution to this, and based on the recommendation to the council, it probably will be put through. This is a suggestion based on what they do currently with the nuclear plant. If you determine an area that's got to be where people have to leave the premises and businesses be closed until the fire is under control and there's no longer any gases being lost or expelled by the building, what about a plan that would credit property taxes to the business owners and homeowners in that district? It's been done on the nuclear level. This might benefit both. I'm sure my insurance costs are going to be higher and my risks are going to be higher, especially if the business has to be closed. This would cover a large part of that expense, although you never know how much the expense would be. The city could potentially gain from that by making it more attractive to locate in that business park if there was a credit for the property tax. I've been in that industrial park since 1999 when we made the purchase. I paid over $500,000 in property tax in that time. In that time, only one additional business located there, Lakeshore Industrial, which is right across the street from us in Bromley Drive. There is also a small utility building there. I believe it's owned by the telephone company, but that's the only buildings that have been built there in 25 years. If there's an incentive for other businesses to move there, such as this property tax credit, it might be something to look into. Any questions?
Where did you get your info from?
It's a company called Baker, B-A-K-E-R, Risk Resource Center. You just Google it online, it's called. And what I read to you tonight is only a small portion of what they have published on it. Maybe a few points that I thought were important. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are still in the first call of the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak again on this topic? come on up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hello. Mark Gordon, River's residence, 3708 Bellevue Place in Rivers. We're talking about them.
Yep.
I just have a few questions. I think it's a great thing with the Hawk storage, but a couple of questions I have is, what feeds these battery storage facilities? Is it strictly just coming off of that substation, or is it coming from different avenues? Also, will the city of Tenaska, is that what I say? Work with local residents to feed the storage facility or the substation with local solar, wind, etc.? We have a lot of rooftops that could possibly feed that. Same thing with Tenaska and the city is, are they providing any kind of training, equipment, etc., to the gentleman's point on safety? Or is that coming strictly out of the city's budget or the fire department's budget to get them up to speed to handle any kind of issues out there? I'm gonna keep on going. Oh, and another question, with that facility, is there a possibility to create a location for EV charging? Like whole stations like Tesla chargers, etc., that pull from that grid as well, to get some traffic there for charging vehicles. 80% is going to be from that anyways in 2045, I believe you said, but 2042. I think that's all I wrote down. So, I mean, this is something to look at, so. That was good.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Do you want to ask some other questions?
Would you like to?
I think let's do it all at the end, we're in the public hearing. Anyone else wishing to speak on the first call? We will close call number 1, open up call number 2. Anyone wishing to speak on the Hawk Battery Energy Storage System project? Closing call number 2, opening up the third and final call. Again, anyone wishing to speak on the Hawk Battery Energy Storage System project. This is the third and final call for anyone wishing to do so. All right, we will close the public hearing and we are going to bring it back to council. As doing so, we will ask representatives from whichever one of them want to, if Jared wants to continue on, or whomever wants to come up and address some of those questions that were heard during the public hearing. Please step up to the podium and try to answer some of those, please. And if you don't have them all written down, I was taking some notes. I think Greg and Amanda were.
Okay, great. I'll kind of go off my notes here and then happy to circle back on anything else that you all may have. So I think on the first set of comments, there was a question around battery standards. So I would, point to our conditions of approval requiring us to design, construct, and operate this project according to NFPA 855, which is considered the gold standard for these types of projects. And then I think there was also some questions around safety. There's a lot of conditions in our approval around safety. We have had preliminary meetings with the fire department and look forward to continuing to advance those. The NFPA 855, I think, also addresses the standards that we'll be needing to design to, which are best practice for safe projects like this. And then also as part of our project, we are committed to working with the fire department on an emergency response plan. So before this project would proceed with an emergency or a building permit, we would have an emergency response plan that I think will address any of those safety questions prior to being able to move into construction on a project like this. And then I know there were some questions around insurance. We have not seen that be an issue or a concern with these types of projects, particularly being in an industrial park like this. So I mentioned that. And then, I guess, are there any other questions on the first?
I'm referencing Mr. Gordon's questions.
Yeah, I can use the ordinance next if you want.
Okay,
Okay, we're gonna go through those.
I know there was I don't recall chapter and verse, but NFPA 55 and other pertinent standards do involve separation or distance from property line. As I recall, it's much less than a quarter mile or anything like that.
That's right, there will be, based on the final technology selected, there will be, separation from battery enclosures that will be dictated based on actual tests of the equipment being used to ensure, safe operation of facilities.
I think Mr. Langman had a suggestion, it's an interesting one about some sort of a tax credit for businesses in the park that might have concerns. Our city attorney would have to look at that in a lot more detail, because generally, cities can't allow, that's what I meant to say, property tax relief. I think the state constitution and standards as far as treating all taxpayers in the same manner come into play there. The idea of insurance coverage for business interruption, which could be a consequence, I can't speak to that. That is, I think, an interesting concept. But a tax credit issued by the city would come up with some legal issues.
Also, in that same thing, he had talked about a radius. Is there a radius of safety? I know you talked about distance between, but is there a actual radius?
Yeah, so that will get established and finalized as part of the emergency response plan. So as we get closer to construction and have final site plans and technology, we can then perform those types of studies and ensure that that's all integrated into the emergency response plan. I will note on this topic, there has been studies done on the technology that we're using, and it's very similar to any kind of typical structure fire or residential fire. So that's kind of what we're looking at if there were to be an event, which is a very low probability event. And I'll also mention that there have been a few events, one in California and one in New York, where they studied real time when there was a project in thermal runaway and assessed whether there was any offsite impacts. And both of those studies came back and identified that there were no offsite impacts. But again, we're going to do the robust analysis and final studies and work through that with the fire department and with you all, prior to having a finalized emergency response plan and having a building permit so that we can move into construction.
In any of your other projects, have you seen where a fire or heard of where a fire happened and it caused businesses adjacent or homes adjacent to that fire that didn't allow them to operate that business and or go back into their home? That has not, okay, I didn't know much about it, so that was a good quick background.
Now, you guys are gonna be monitoring offsite 24/7.
Yes, that will be 24/7 monitoring of the project.
If there's an issue, what is the response time?
Yeah, so it would be, effectively
And it's gonna be
immediately.
Through us?
Yes, so yeah, we will, as part of the emergency response plan, we will have protocols in place with the fire department. If there's any abnormality and they want to be notified, it'll be an immediate kind of instantaneous notice. And we'll be there engaging and working through, any event with them.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else on council? Bill?
So is there training involved with the fire department, and are you guys gonna take care of the training?
Absolutely, yeah. So before we have, batteries showing up, we're committed to having, robust initial training. And then we've also, as one of our conditions, agreed to at least annually have, talk about refresh training with the fire department. And if they want to have it more than annually, we're happy to support, that as needed. And I think that's a condition of our approval.
And there was a question about where you're buying the power from.
Yeah, I can talk to some of Mark's questions. So I think the first question was what feeds the batteries. So yeah, so we'll be interconnecting with the Shoto substation, and we would be charging our batteries with electricity coming out of the Shoto substation. And so it's, electricity at the Shoto substation. The question was whether we would be able to, distribute that energy locally. So we are not a utility, we're not a public utility, so that's a responsibility of a utility. But our project will be providing, similar type services onto the market or to a utility, which then can fulfill their function to, use projects like these to kind of serve their customers. But we're essentially participating in the wholesale market, whereas I think some of the questions were more related to kind of a retail market that a utility tends to perform those types of functions, given the way the market's set up here.
Can I speak?
No.
Sorry.
We talked about training, and then I think on EV chargers, yeah, it's an interesting opportunity, but our main focus at this time is on the standalone battery project.
Anybody else?
If I could speak to Mr. Gordon's question, I think that we could certainly have a sidebar discussion after the meeting or later time with Brian Delman, our electric utility director. Any issues as far as selling solar generated power back from home or commercial rooftop units would really be a matter of the local utility. Because actually, as we understand, there won't be an interconnect between the battery storage facility and our Two Rivers public utilities should be connected. Power will be flowing to and from the Shoto substation, which is portable to the grid. So that would be a function of the local Two Rivers Water and Light utility. And I'm not saying this is right, wrong, or otherwise, but as staff has looked at this, the nearest best facility, battery energy storage system facility to here is in Sheboygan at the site of this decommissioned now or soon to be decommissioned Alliant Edgewater coal plant. And Attorney Bruce had forwarded a while back in January the Public Service Commission's approval of that project. Now I just complicated things. Alliant Energy is a regulated Wisconsin public utility. They needed PSC approval. Not a utility. Tenaska's project, Hawk Energy Storage doesn't. But that PSC record shows that the Edgewater BESS facility, which is 100 megawatts, I think 400 megawatt hours, so about 2/3 the size of what's proposed here, is located within 563 feet of the nearest residence and 849 feet of the nearest school. Those aren't standards, that's pretty close, just as an illustration.
Anyone else on council? This is a pretty big deal, and in order for me to allow any follow-up questions, I would have to suspend rules. Something that we don't usually like to do, but we will suspend those rules. I will allow Mr. Langman and Mr. Gordon to ask one-time questions. It can be multiple questions, but if we could just ask those questions, get the answer, we'll move to Mr. Gordon, ask those questions, we'll get the answer, and then we're gonna move on. Usually public comments and public hearings have to be done during the public comment, but again, we will suspend the rules. This is an important project, and I want both individuals who spoke on this to be very comfortable with whatever decision comes out. Mr. Langman, nope, you can stay right there, just use your outside voice. Mr. Langman.
All right. Now, again, the concern is for safety. There really isn't much history to this type of business. The few representation stories that I recounted, like the Australia problem, the fire got out of control, it took 4 days to control it, but even then, there was noxious gas spewing out of that. You gotta try to get an answer to that. What's the safe distance to be from this plant if there is an accident? As far as this tax recommendation, that was just a thought off the side, thinking that it may make the entire situation profitable for the city, or is the company going to make any payments and tax payments to the city?
Yes, they are a taxing entity, and should they go private, there is a pilot in place as well. So yes, the city will be made whole.
Okay, and then as far as that goes, I guess when I said tax credit, that would have been wrong, in that I was suggesting the company, the electric company, pay the taxes of the property owners that would be within the radius of a danger zone. A place that's gonna be shut down whenever there's a problem. That was my only two comments.
Yeah, so first on the history, I will note there are over 20,000 megawatts of operating projects like this across the country. So to put that in perspective, we're looking at a 150 megawatt project here. So I know it is new technology, but there are a lot of projects that are operating safely over multiple years here throughout the country. And then I think on the fires, again, point back to us committed to dividing to the gold standard of design for a project like this. I would also note, I think, to our knowledge, there have been no injuries to anyone in the public associated with any criminal runaway incident at a battery project, from a public safety perspective. So, and then I think, as I mentioned, it's just not, I've never seen a project making, like tax payments to neighbors and, businesses. That's not something that's common for businesses to do.
And I would note that what Mr. Langman is talking about, not the good sides, but he's talking about something in Australia, which may have different standards than what we have here in the United States. Again, we are following an FPA regulations, and I'm gonna ask AC Kakis, who's back there, once these questions are done, just to speak on his perspective, working with the fire department, working with this situation. So, Mr. Gordon, if you have a follow-up question or questions that you'd like to ask, go ahead right now, please.
Yeah, I actually had 3 of them, and then basically just spearheaded from your comments. So, about the radius, will that prevent other businesses, startups, or the city creating their own power bank, or citizens creating their own power bank? Is there any restrictions with that radius? Like, let's say it's a 50-mile radius, are we not allowed to create another power bank that can either interconnect or work separately?
No, there would be no restrictions from our project in terms of having additional future projects in the area.
In that area?
Yeah.
To piggyback off of that also, with your facility, will it's, or in the radius, safety, et cetera, will that prevent other businesses from forming or going into that industrial park because of that radius or safety issues?
No, and I think that's, just demonstrated by when we look at, 20,000 megawatts of projects operating across the whole country. In Greg mentioned, there's projects in close proximity to homes, to schools, and they are all going through rigorous, analysis to demonstrate that there are no offsite, impacts from projects.
Okay. And then the third one was, you mentioned, I think Mr. Buckley, you mentioned decommissioning in Sheboygan. Now, is that the facility decommissioning or a different facilities decommissioning?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And they're creating that?
I was referring to the coal plant that's being shut down,
Okay.
decommissioned. However, whenever there's discussion about a battery energy storage system, you hear discussion about decommissioning because, as is identified in the conditions here, the city will want to see and require as a condition of the building permit an acceptable decommissioning plan for when this facility, and the estimate is 20 years down the road. Don't hold me to that. That's the current industry estimate. But a decommissioning plan, a major purpose of which is to identify the cost of decommissioning, taking off, disassembling and removing from the site all of the improvements. And just to expand on that, the current conditional use permit as proposed would require that is updated at least once every 5 years. And that both initially and following each of those updates, there be an amount for an appropriate surety or bonds, and that's subject to future approval by the city, satisfactory to the city, that would assure, because I'll say it, I don't think it's right, everything's an LLC these days. Poof. LLCs with one asset usually. So there will be the need to have, a decommissioning plan and a sufficient surety or bond from a reputable insurance company or other entity to the city's satisfaction to make darn sure that the dollars are there to disassemble and remove that facility if it reaches the end of its life.
So I'm gonna interrupt that. I apologize.
That's right.
So, basically, spearheading off of that, my question is, I'm not looking at decommissioning. So does Tenaska have a plan in place for future growth to every 5 years to his point? Or are you planning on hitting a 20-year mark, decommissioning?
No, it's a great question, and, we don't know exactly what the history's, what the future's gonna unfold here, but I think our initial plans right now would be to operate this project for at least 20 years, and we're confident based on how we're designing it and the equipment that we're procuring for it, that we can achieve that. And it is possible that could extend, beyond 20 years. There's also scenarios where there could be a repowering, but I believe that would also require us to come back and get a new permit for that type of activity. So that's kind of our answer. And
Thank you.
I'll mention, Mr. Lanning, Mr. Gordon, we're going to stay after, and so we're happy to stay as long as you like after the meeting and talk through additional questions you have.
And just for clarification, this particular site that is being proposed is on the north side of that industrial park. So for the most part, to answer Mr. Gordon's question about people building, that area is pretty well built in already. There may be one site available, maybe, right?
Wisconsin Nationwide owns a good sized site on the east side of Woodland Drive. And the city, boy, I think we've only got about 2 acres that's under auction, right at first refusal by WG and Harvard.
And so for the most part, that whole area is already built in. So as far as it not allowing for other people to build in that particular area, that part of the industrial park is well fit. Where Mr. Langman and Brown's is, that would be on the other side, just so we know exactly where this is going. Thank you. Assistant Chief Kakis, would you just speak a little bit on the fire protection side of it, if you would?
So I've learned a lot about these systems since the project. Very interested in the project. We didn't know much of it. I've taken a class at the Appleton Fire Department. They just had presented a class about a week and a half ago. And I've done a lot of self-study myself on it and watching different webcasts. I just had a webinar with NFPA on these systems. They're everywhere. They're growing. It's technology that's not going away. And we have a lot of these technologies are very similar to the technology we have in our tools that we have at our house. They're just at a bigger scale. So lithium-ion isn't something that's new, but there's inherent dangers to those. But if they're maintained properly, used properly, it diminishes that chance of it happening. Danger with lithium-ion is once the thermal runaway starts, it has everything it needs to continue combustion. So most of the time, it's recommended to let them burn out completely and not try to extinguish the fires, because that's just going to extend the process of flare-ups and things like that. Fire departments nationwide are being trained by companies like theirs through the NFPA, because they are new risk with electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles. These are things we're going to see and use every day in life, so they're not going away. I'm confident myself, and from talking to the representatives from the company, that they are committed to the safety of us. Pertaining hazards, like he was talking about, that all depends on wind direction and everything else. So, the smoke is what can be hazardous, and that's what we have to consider when responding to these types of incidents. And we have emergency response guides that guide us as first responders to dictate zones in which we want to evacuate for safety. So for somebody to say you have like a nuclear plant has zones of evacuation depending on different levels. For us to say you have a set zone or area that you have to follow isn't the case. It's on a case-by-case basis, and that's up to the first responding units to identify that what's going on, wind direction and all that, take that into consideration, and then make an educated decision on how we want to evacuate, if we want to evacuate, and that kind of thing.
How common are fires in your research and the NFPA and what they have provided you? How common are fires?
There have been instances of fire in energy storage facilities. The design that I saw they proposed is different than a lot of the designs that they have issues with. These are cabinets. There's not an occupiable space inside of these containers. So the ones that I've seen an issue with actually have walkways and ability to occupy those places. And they had gases build up, and they have everything to have combustion except oxygen. And as soon as you open the door, that's when you have explosions. The system that they were proposing that I saw doesn't have that ability to have those occupiable spaces to build up toxic gases, explosive gases. So all it needs is the oxygen rush and for air to come in and for it to blow up.
So from what you see, this would be a much safer project than other ones that have taken place.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else have questions, Jeff?
I would assume then, say anything that was built in 2021, 22, 23, and up till now, I would assume that the safety has gotten better and better and better each year as it increases.
Correct.
Maybe you guys can answer that question, but I would assume that.
Correct. NFPA 855 is like you said, the golden standard that all industries are going off because it's such a new technology. Considering NFPA 70 is another electrical standard they go off of the 70 series. So there's many standards out there that dictate how these places should be built with safety in mind, because it's a National Fire Protection Association that's releasing these standards.
Anybody else here before we look for a motion? Okay, I will look for a motion on this. Thank you, Susan G. Kigus. I will look for a motion on this public hearing and the conditional use permit application by Hawk Battery Energy Storage.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Tracy, seconded by Bill. Any further council discussion? Spot.
I was just wondering what it meant, on page 7 and stuff, oh, I'm sorry, I wrote it down, but I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Decommissioning is about decommissioning, and then it says the city will not condition such approval, I think it means, but I just was wondering if that meant.
City will not unreasonably, Jack, it appears a couple places, 13
Yeah, it
and
says
14.
it in quite a number of places.
We started with language that the city would not unreasonably withhold such approval. My non-lawyer understanding is, and the Tenasca folks asked for the addition of the words delay or condition. Again, unreasonably applies to this, because you can delay or condition something to the point where you're effectively denying it. And that was the reason for the addition.
Yeah, I think that's what the proposed additions were intended to refer to.
And I was just,
I do recall that. It's again an effort on their part, it's not a strange one, it's not an abnormal one, to provide that the city won't take steps that attempt to interfere with them obtaining an approval matter based on reasonable grounds.
Anybody else? Council discussion on this one.
it's in front of you, but I just wanted to point out, condition number 21 was added after plan commission by staff. And it simply reads that this conditional use permit will not be effective, nor should the city engage in any plan review relative to this project until Swift Energy Storage LLC, which holds the option to purchase the site at the industrial park that was approved in 2021, an option agreement by council, has assigned its real estate purchase option to the subject property as further described in condition 19 to Hawk Energy Storage LLC, the applicant is on the CU, or excuse me, the conditional use application tonight, and that assignment is subject to approval by the council. I expect the council votes yes on the conditional use permit tonight. This will be on a future agenda, maybe as soon as 2 weeks from now. Just didn't want that to be a surprise. That's clearly anticipated here because you gotta have the right ownership entity with rights to the conditional use permit.
Thank you. Chrissy.
So this all, if approved, the conditional use permit, do all the supporting documents go with that for public view at any time? In other words, we're gonna be putting together a safety plan, and such. I'm assuming that'll all be part of the file.
They're all
They're
public documents, but
Right.
knowing the environmental field that you work in, if actually we had a public repository where it's not, well, this is at the fire department, this is in planning. They're all public documents and they would be advisable, certainly.
Okay. So when you do that. Okay.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda?
Monica Luna. Aye. Scott Steckelberg.
Aye.
Adam Hussey.
Aye.
Jeff Geltke.
Aye.
Tracy Coe.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Teacher.
Thank you, motion carries. Mr. Langman, I know you have concerns. I hope you trust in our fire department and the plan that they will put together with Alaska. I think they will have the utmost safety in mind, and they will follow all the NFPA regulations, especially as it relates to 855. And I do encourage you, if you want to have a side conversation with those folks and or the assistant chief who's here tonight, just off to the side or after the meeting, I'm sure they'd be happy to talk with you and address any further concerns. We want you to feel safe, we want you to feel comfortable with this project. We think it will be a good thing for the community as a whole, but understand your concerns and hopefully these guys can answer those should you have any further needs.
The tenacity team, thank you, Mr. President, they did say that they will be sticking around until after the meeting. So if you want to, it's not meaning we're going to torture people, Ken, by making you stay for the whole meeting. I'm sure they'd be happy to have a discussion down the hall with any interested parties, but they will be included and after. You can pass them with that questions, just don't approach it form. Keep it onesies and twosies.
We do ask though, if you do have that conversation, you can have it down the way so we can continue our meeting. All right, we have one more public hearing. It is a public hearing on Roosevelt Avenue Special Assessments. Consideration of final resolution authorizing special assessments. The recommended action is a motion to waive reading and approve the final resolution authorizing special assessments and costs incurred for removing existing pavement, excavation, installation of storm service laterals, grading and graveling, Portland cement concrete paving, driveway approaches, carriage walks, repair of sidewalks, and miscellaneous related work. Matt, are you introducing this, or is Greg before we open up the public hearing?
Matt will introduce it, and Rick, our IT guy, will figure out what the devil I put on the screen. It's nothing of my producing. I can't see it. I hope it's G-rated. Sure it is. I'm sorry.
Whatever it is. All right, we'll turn it over to Matt.
So I won't read the resolutions, basically this is the resolution to authorize assessments for the Roosevelt Avenue project from 12 renewal all the way down to old. Overall, it came in really well. When we started doing the calculation, for all the large intersections in that area, it actually broke the assessment rates up. And so the city's actually gonna take on a little bit more of that cost. And these are letters that we sent out to property owners, the assessment rate that we were hoping to achieve or less was $85 a front foot. Doing all the calculations, we were actually up around $92. So we had an internal discussion and said we will hold at $85 to help the property owners out by that additional $7 a front foot. This is a total road reconstruction, meaning we are removing the entire road pavement, curb and gutter, redoing all the utilities, underground utilities, and replacing, including private sanitary laterals, water services, and extending storm sewer laterals out behind the curb and gutter for future connections as necessary. So the project will start in and around April 1 and extend through the summer into mid-October, hopefully being complete by that time. So that's in a nutshell what this project is entailing.
Thank you for having that internal discussion and keeping that 85, because I don't think you get much support from the council up here to go any further than what we had addressed in the letter. So we appreciate that ahead of time. Okay, we will open up the public hearing just like we did with the last one. Anyone looking to solely speak on this topic and this topic only, please step up to the podium to my right or left, state your name and address for the record. and we will open up call number 1.
Hello, my name is Jim Bob Scooter, I live on 1800 Jefferson Street, apartment unit 206. I'm wondering, when will this project be started, and will there be a bike lane? And then, what is the green space gonna look like?
It sounds like the project's gonna start on April 1. I don't think I saw a bike lane in there, but the full project is out beyond this wall. The whole scope of it, I know there's quite a bit of green space from looking at it. To speak to it fully, and I don't have a map in front of me to further talk to it, but you could talk with our city engineer, and he can walk you through that if you wish, after we're done with the public hearing. But very good question, and thank you. Okay, we are still in call number 1. Anyone wishing to speak on this? Yep.
I can't stand up.
Okay, if you can just use your outside voice and
Okay.
just state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm on 1947 Roosevelt Avenue. And you mentioned from 12th Street to Low that they're redoing the street. Am I not right on that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Low crosses over to go to, say, the Memorial Drive, and there's nothing but railroad tracks there. Are they gonna be replaced or repaired with the project?
I'm not fully sure on that, but we're gonna have Matt step back up here and he can address that quickly. Yep.
You want me to
Yep.
address it now?
Yep.
Or, okay. I'll actually address both questions, both the Jim Bob and yours. The railroad tracks at Lowell towards the lake, we are actually going to remove those tracks as part of this project. Because we have some utility work extending into the intersection, we're gonna take those tracks out at the same time.
Thank you.
And as far as green space, we are gonna be increasing the terrace width on some areas of the project and keeping it about the same in other areas.
Okay. Still in call number 1. Anyone wishing to speak on this topic for the public hearing on Roosevelt? Closing call number 1. We will open up call number 2. Again, anyone wishing to speak on the Roosevelt project and the special assessments? We will close call number 2 and open up the third and final call of this public hearing. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Looking for a motion on this.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Scott, seconded by Jeff. Any further council discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Amanda?
Scott Stephenson.
Aye.
Alan Hussey.
Aye.
Jeff Belkey.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Charlie Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shmulnis.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. On to number 6, which is input from the public. Anyone wishing to address the council on something that's on this agenda or something they'd like to see for a future agenda, please step up to the podium, my right, your left, and state your name and address for the record. Input from the public.
There's some sidewalks.
Can you state your name and address? I'm sorry, we know you, but the audience may not.
Apartment number 206.
Thank you, Jim.
There's some sidewalks, like the one by the 22nd Street Bridge that are kind of missing some, missing a little bit of sidewalk, like the sidewalk is one, like on like 23rd and 22nd, I think it's like on like East Street maybe, closest to the, kind of over by Connie's. Runs along, 22nd. If there's not supposed to be sidewalk going all the way along there, but I think some of the blocks there, maybe, if there could be like a sidewalk all the way along there. 22nd Street.
Are you talking in the crosswalk, or are you talking in the actual sidewalk? The actual sidewalk, over by Connie's.
Like, like,
22nd goes, yep, from Walgreens all the way down towards Pickett's Air.
The bridge and then, you go north on East Street. Yeah, on the west side of the 22nd Street Bridge.
Okay.
You go north,
Okay,
there's a sidewalk that I think goes, even up to 23rd. And then, there's there should be like a sidewalk all the way running around there.
we can have city engineering take a look at that, and he can report back to maybe the Public Works Committee. And the Public Works Committee can identify any problems and bring that before the council with a recommendation. So it looks like Matt has that written down, and he will investigate and report back to the Public Works Committee. Thank you very much. Yes.
My oversight earlier, Council and Mr. President, actually was input for the public hearing on conditional use permit you approved earlier, but I just wanted to note, and Amanda can for the record, that the council was in receipt just this evening of a letter from Scott Anholt, Homestead Range Dairy Farm on Highway 310 of the town of Two Rivers. I know it's outside the city, but expressing his support for the conditional use. I'm sorry, I got tied up listening to the discussion here, but this is a matter of record. I'm sure I'll be noted in the public. Thank you.
Anybody else, input from the public? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to council communications. Any letters or other communications from citizens that any council member would like to share with the rest of the council? Tracy?
I had one call on the proposed, pilot project for details on the sidewalks on businesses, and they didn't like it.
Sure, anybody else? Bob?
In a conversation, somebody mentioned, or they were saying that people have, he knows one person at least, asking why the city sold property to, what is that place called, Cool City Brewery? And I just wanted the people to know that the city did not do that. That was land, the parking lot by the post office and the parking lot across from the senior centers was land that was owned by,
Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo. And if somebody, had the wrong impressions, and a couple people do. So I thought I'd bring that up. But then I'd also like to, somebody had, written to the whole council about who gets letters that, on the website, that says, this is going to the whole council. Even I'd like to know that. They have, who does get it?
I don't think I'm leaving anybody out. Amanda helped me, but city council, city manager, city clerk.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh.
And actually, they come to the city council, so they're a public record at the point where they're submitted. But sometimes staff, like you got two today, actually, from somebody who's in the audience here tonight. But those, I think Lisa, your deputy clerk, or my assistant also gets them. So it's council and 3 staff members. And I will sometimes, like today, there were 2 questions, I forwarded those to the city attorney. We couldn't know that out on the website where people,
We can't respond back in that, can we?
No, you have to specifically respond, put their email address.
Because I know I tried to respond back once and.
Oh, yeah, you can't hit
Yeah, it
reply.
goes back, it tries to go back to the website.
Yes, but it makes sense because otherwise we're in the forum.
right,
Right.
it keeps you
Correct.
safe.
Right, yeah, I know what else.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anyone over here? I know. I know. That's why I try to get everyone else. Anybody else before yours out? Jeff?
I had several calls on the master project, and they were just basically questions that were answered tonight. One that was not, that I could not answer, is what does the city project tax
money coming into the city would be on that.
That, I'm gonna give you a long-winded answer, but you're used to that too. It depends on several variables. We got a legal opinion at the time Tenaska came looking at the site that if it is, not owned by a Wisconsin public utility, which is, it wouldn't be at this point, it could be in the future. It would not be, hold on. If it's not owned by a Wisconsin public utility, it would be subject to regular property taxes. So the city, school district, county, LTC's mill rates would all apply. There are some circumstances if the law changes or if the word generation, which is proposed, co-located, it could be deemed subject, exempt from property taxes, but subject to the state's utility tax, where the state applies a rate and sends a portion back to cities. We've got a fallback in the option agreement that is meant to assure that the city would get, whether it's taxable, partially exempt, or fully exempt for property taxes, a minimum of $150,000 per year, increased or adjusted each year by consumer price index. Can't go below 150,000, even though in theory the CPI can be negative. We haven't seen that for a while. But that would be cumulative over time. So actually we're, as of this year, with these 2 years worth of consumer price index applied to that 150,000. So that's what was written into the option to purchase agreement that was approved by this council and in public session in 2021.
I told them I thought it was a minimum of 150,000, but I wasn't sure that that's.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say 150,000 would sort of be the worst case scenario.
And also I had a conversation when I went out for dinner. Somebody wanted to know if we could do something about the painting of the lines at 22nd and Washington Street, right by Walgreens. Because there's supposed to be, you can have some parking in there and people are using it as just straight through.
And southbound on Washington at 22nd, there's no, I mean, you can go whichever you want in those lanes. There's no, left turn only arrow, left and straight ahead. That would probably be, city engineer, a good referral to the Public Works Committee. Yeah. And the paint is in pretty bad shape there too.
Yeah, they were concerned about, especially somebody that doesn't really seem like anybody should be able to park there.
There's no parking restriction.
Right.
I will also assume that those will get painted, repainted this summer. Because I don't think they did all of them last year. I know we got some restraints down there as well, but I think they'll probably make their best efforts to get some of that paint repainted with the manpower that they have, which.
I think I remember this coming up like 3 years ago and it never really got done.
It came up when we were in COVID and we're cutting back. It got painted after that, but not real well. Honestly, the paint markings on Washington Street when it was redone from the bridge to 22nd were all an epoxy paint, and that's really good and it's crisp and it looks great. But when it wears out, unless you want to bear the expense, and we're looking at that this year for some like crosswalk markings as well, the borders that are in pretty sad shape. Doing that, otherwise, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are restricted in the types of paints we can use because of runoff into the storm sewers, and it doesn't hold up well if you just use the standard paints. Epoxy would be, or thermoplastic, either one would be better. They're also a lot more expensive.
Okay, I see Matt making notes on that, so I'm sure that will be addressed.
And also there was one more on 19th Street and Madison, around in there between Madison and Adams Street. Jim, you probably know what I'm talking about, as you're coming down, going towards Forest Avenue there. That'd be 19th Street. There's a big dip in there. It's not bad now, but it's going to be again. But that was a scary spray. And somebody's wondering if I could possibly look into doing that.
So 19th Street going.
Right on 19th Street.
Oh, yeah.
Going
They
east.
checked into it last year and said that it was probably sewer that was leaking.
So you're talking from down by the Zerkers going east.
Yes, heading east.
So down west.
If you're coming on Adam, or if you're coming,
The Big
Yeah.
Beaver Road is west of my place.
if you're going north on Madison, and then you go east on 19th Street.
Okay. Madison headed north, going east on 19th.
So between Madison and Adams.
Yep.
West.
West, is it west?
It's between school and.
East.
Between school, I think that was a sewer break, and it should have been, the sewer break has been fixed. I don't think the pavement has been fixed.
So you know the area we're talking
I
about.
think so, yeah.
East or west, right now doesn't matter, you know the area. Perfect. Even better for me. Thank you, sorry.
And I had one more.
Give us a call in the next 2 weeks. It doesn't have to wait. You can still bring it up respectfully.
Okay, I had a couple, I had some correspondence on sidewalk signs as well. One that was against, two that were for, and one that was neutral. So he didn't care one way or another, but would be interested to see what would happen if we allowed them and how it would look if we would participate. Didn't know if they really like them or not, so I guess I would consider that kind of neutral. And then I also had one that I think contacted all of us. It seemed like it had to do with Airbnb and where they get their loans from is what I gathered from it. I'm not quite sure, but we did receive it. I don't know how much jurisdiction we really have from my understanding of the email in that regard.
Yeah, and I did refer both of those emails, or two from that individual this afternoon to the city attorney, but I think a quick consensus is, yeah, your home, the mortgage agreement you have to your home, if it assumes it was for your personal residence, you may have some compliance issues if you turn your property into a long-term rental or a short-term rental. Council may differ on this, but I would submit it's not really the city's job to advise you that you need to be in compliance with the terms of your mortgage. That's a separate contractual arrangement property owners had. The other one was about possible private rental of pools, hot tubs, other water things, primarily pools and hot tubs on your property. That would be a violation of our ordinances as they stand now. Just if they were rented out by themselves, you can rent out a single family home long-term or as a vacation rental that has those features, but to rent out your backyard pool for parties or things like that would be a violation of zoning code, just like saying I've got an auto detailing business in my garage. If it's a commercial activity in a residential neighborhood, it'd be prohibited. Do we have enforcement personnel that are running all over town looking for that? No, but if a complaint received that.
Jeff, looks like you have one more.
Yep, I remember what it was now, but when we brought up the sidewalk signs. Somebody had asked me, they didn't even have a business, but it was a good question. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. They can understand at the real estate agencies, having a picture there, but if you're gonna have a sidewalk sign in front of your own business, what real good does that do? Because it's right there when you look at the window. And they wanted to know why, and if people were going to be able to have them in front of other places. If it was okayed by another business, which actually looked pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you have it right in front of your own business, well, then your business is right there anyway. It doesn't really help you much.
Yep. Okay, anyone else? We're moving on. Looking at number 8, council reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Anyone have anything they'd like to report on? Chris Adam? You shaking your head no?
I had very little to say. With Main Street, we're still going ahead with our Euro project, initiative. We're kind of hitting some snags that we gotta get through, and when everything's said and done, it's gonna be a while before you really see it grow. So I just wanted everybody to know that there's a lot of moving parts, and what one person might think is a good idea, another person doesn't, and I mean, it's just a lot of negotiations.
What is the projected spot for that? Or is that still a discussion?
That's in discussion. We have approached one business owner who has a really nice south-facing wall with a rendering that we had a local muralist do, and it's really, really nice, and it's gorgeous. And he just isn't interested at this point, he's got something else he's interested in. So, we're just gonna back burner that one.
Okay.
Because I really don't see the advantage for using that design on a different wall, it would just, it wouldn't work. The other place that we've been talking about has been the west wall of the senior center. And we did have this local muralist do a rendering of, you know, just, this is a suggestion, it's a concept for what you might see there. What we were thinking is to have a very natural background, and then for the environmental advisory board portion of it, have vertical plantings, you know, that go up the wall at trellises, maybe to 6-7 feet. But the back would really lend itself to the plants themselves. We have to, actually, we haven't been able to present the rendering yet, maybe talk to you and Mike Mathis, just so you can see what we're talking about. And then we would have to talk to the Friends of the Senior Center. That's
Probably Committee on Aging and the Friends Group, they have a lot of interest in that facility.
right.
Yeah.
So, and that in itself is another, that would take a while, you know, think about it, just like with the park, the design would back and forth for a while. Other than that, Environmental Advisory Board, we are doing very well on our educational series, and we have come up with some ideas for the third series. And we just keep getting better and better and better. Our speakers are primo, experts, thank you. And we've gotten so much good information from them. One thing I wanted to say is that at our next one, which is March 7th, no.
Yes, this Thursday.
Yeah, it's gonna be at the Behringer Room across the street. It will not be at the library. And then the one in April will also be in the Behringer Room. So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, we've got stuff going on, but it's gonna take time.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything to report? Seeing none, city managers report, Greg.
I'll skip into my slideshow. Chief Minor had to take his leave, but I'll let him know as soon as that's done and see if we can get him back on there. I'm sorry, I should have suggested going right to him after the hearings. Just real quickly, thank you, Jeff, for the great photo of the waterfront. Of course, the reason we're meeting down here tonight is that for nearly 2 weeks now, the command center for the search and investigation relating to the disappearance of Elijah Blue will be 2 weeks tomorrow. That has been taking place in the city council chambers and in most of the third floor here at City Hall. The chief has got some additional information he'll share from today's release on the subject. I just wanted to express on behalf of our city government and the community our profound appreciation. We had the FBI's rapid response team for missing children with experts who were in from all over the country within a day of the call. There's been extensive representation, and it's ongoing, both from the FBI and Wisconsin's Division of Criminal Investigation of the Department of Justice, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, the area volunteer fire departments, our own fire department, public works, parks and rec, the community. We have never experienced anything like this in tours, and I pray to God that we never do again. But the outpouring of support that's been shown and the resources from government, federal, state, local, that have been brought to bear ought to make everybody feel good about what happens when something truly terrible happens involving a child. And my hat's really off to those people. And I'm just going to share one woman who's with the FBI's rapid deployment team had occasion to run to Walgreens here in town. And one person wondered how they could make a donation. Of course, that's available online now through the police department online. Another lady stopped her and said they expressed gratitude that the FBI was here helping. Wondered if she could buy this person lunch, that time didn't permit that. And then a third person, an older gentleman, walked up to her in the parking lot and said, you know, we just feel so helpless about this, but are grateful that you're here. And is it okay if I give you a hug? And that's Two Rivers, and everybody that has responded has been very impressed. And I will say, and again, this is just a god-awful, sad, terrible situation, but very complimentary of our police department and how they've got things organized, so those outside entities were able to step in and begin action immediately. And you need to hear that, and the community needs to hear that. So, well done to Chief Minor and his crews, and hopefully the chief will join us again shortly down here. Staffing, we were introduced Friday and continuing into today for the meter tech position in the electric utility. Our meter tech promoted to the position of electrician and ultimately electrical inspector. We are in the process of recruitment for the finance director position. Mr. Bush retiring in June, and applications to assure consideration are due by this Friday. Doesn't mean you can't apply on Saturday if you're a well-qualified candidate or thereafter, but we're reaching out for a new finance director. And those are some big shoes to fill. I just wanted to share this kind of pales in comparison to the other major news item, but just last week, we delivered the 6th and final payment to Vinton Construction, Two Rivers, over at their corporate offices on the east side. That represented completing the city's commitment to provide Vinton with a $200,000 TIF grant, paid in installments at 5% interest, to assist with their investment of more than $1 million in turning the former St. Peter the Fisherman School over on 33rd Street, which was a tax-exempt white elephant as it stood, into very attractive corporate offices, now assessed at close to $850,000, and a hub of activity with office staff and field staff that are in there in the winter and are doing things like filling up their cars and buying lunch and the other things that we want to see for business here. So thank you to Vinton and their Badgerland Aggregates affiliated companies that are there. And that TIF has got a fair amount of juice left into it as far as being able to assist with other activities, including assisting with more development along Route 10 Avenue, possible investments in Vietnam Veterans Park that are called out in the TIF plan, and neighborhood infrastructure improvements. So we'll be bringing some ideas back to council and looking at as we go into the 2025 budget prep. But most of all, thank you to Vinton for having the vision and the wherewithal to make that investment. Again, something we shared with the Personnel and Finance Committee at their last meeting. We report monthly on the status of overtime by various use of overtime by various city departments. We utilize a lot of overtime. We're calling people back to work quite often, not just in the emergency services fields, but in the utilities and other areas. If you look down at the grand totals there, you see that 2023, and that's as of the end of December, is down from the last 2 years, $494,000 in total overtime. Actually, that is, there's only 1 year in the last 6 that, if I'm reading that right, yes, that was lower than that. And that ain't bad when you consider that base wages in 2023 were at least 20% higher than they were in the year 2018. So that reflects our department heads being good stewards, and it also reflects a little bit of luck, because as we see the current issue in the police department is dealing with Elijah's disappearance, there are times that you have to pull out all the stops, and we're seeing that right now. But 2023 was a pretty good year on the overtime front. Just a point of interest, there's insurance, a claim is being processed. About a week ago Sunday, on February 25th, about 11 p.m., a vehicle, I think it was westbound on 18th at Washington, didn't go quite the right place. Struck and destroyed a traffic signal at the southwest corner of Washington at 18th, took out a bench facing Washington Street along the sidewalk there, hopped pretty nicely, somehow hopped over that retaining wall, and boom, landed on top of about 5 benches in the park. So Parks and Rec has done a damage assessment. They've been in touch with the local manufacturer of the play equipment, they're part of Form Rec, and an insurance claim is in process. So the plate is whited out, but it was kind of an interesting situation. Happily didn't bust up any of the pavers trying to work.
You put the photo online, it's online.
Did not, no, somebody else
Somebody else
may have.
did.
There were some photos on the Facebook.
It was amazing. I mean, it was exactly amazing.
It's kind of interesting. Just a reminder, Amanda, our city clerk here, other staff can help you absent voter ballots for the April 2 spring election. Can be requested online at lionsvotewi.org or by mail with an acceptable photo ID. Those are the two options, Amanda.
Correct.
Okay, in person, not an option.
2 weeks prior to the election.
Okay, that would kick in 2 weeks prior. Get it done beforehand, but 2 weeks prior, you can do it first. Darrell mentioned this earlier, the continuing educational series, Our Land, Our Water, Our Future. This week, Thursday, on stormwater at the library. You know what, I'm gonna interrupt this right now because the chief is available, and I'll pull up the press release from this afternoon. Chief, the podium yours.
A couple things, sorry, I had to exit real quick, last stuff on that, we had a briefing at 7:15, so that's where I was. Also, the officer that ran through here before, that was a medical emergency, as you can imagine, we got some heightened security here for various reasons, with all the investigative stuff going on. I don't know what was talked about earlier, if anything, but really, just like any other time, our police department always prides itself in transparency and just keeping the public informed. Clearly, if you've been paying any attention, which I think all of you have, because everybody's played their knuckles over this one, with just true concern. I've been releasing something on daily, if not multiple times. I know a bunch of you, council members and also department staff have been at press conferences, so I appreciate that. It means a lot to our officers and staff. Really, the best thing, I mean, I'm not gonna go back to all the different steps of this, because it's been in all our news releases and our press conference, especially the last press conference where I really detailed out exactly what took place and how. Our latest one, which I would encourage everybody to take a look at, I know it's been passed out, is really looking for some information per TCI's investigation related to that vehicle of interest. And then also just requesting, especially more people in the rural areas, we're gonna have a very large scale operation taking place again tomorrow for the search for Elijah. And I reached out as a Wisconsin chief of police to all the different agencies throughout the state for officers for that search. And, you know, with the drop of the hat, they brought up close to 150 officers that are coming out to assist tomorrow. Prior to that, as you know, we've had landfill situations where we've reached out to the sheriffs. That's a little bit easier task than the daunting task of 600 Wisconsin police agencies, but all 72 sheriff's deputy or sheriffs in the state had also reached out and they have full supplies with sheriff's deputies. Other than that, I mean, clearly it's taken a toll on our department, all our different city departments. I could talk endlessly about that, but that's not what's really important right now. It's just finding Elijah, and that's what we stay focused on. I will say though, regardless of the toll, I've been super impressed with all our city staff from top to bottom. It's just made things just run so smoothly. We've had accolades from the FBI, DCI, that they don't normally go into most cities, especially a city our size, and have such cooperation and everything really at their fingertips to really get ahead of a situation like this. And that's what we're hoping to do. So with that, answer any questions if anybody has any real quick, but.
You want to speak to the contents of this release a little bit, Chief?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Asking people to help.
Sure, yeah, it's gone on everything, I'm sure the media's running with it, but for the most part, I'm just asking for that cooperation, throughout, the area for those large scale search efforts. Continue to do all the things that we have been doing, looking at your surveillance, looking at, anything that you have, your yards, and giving us any tips, leads, we follow up on everything. In addition, DCI is releasing these pictures of a vehicle. We do have it in custody, that vehicle, but they're looking for specifically surveillance camera footage captured between February 19th of 2024 between the hours of 2 p.m. and 9 p.m. So if you have any of that, please search, and if you have that information, reach out to our tip line. As well as if you have videos and you're having trouble uploading them, you can contact the tip line, and they will help you to upload those. Open for anything else if anybody has anything.
Thank you, Chief, for all you've done, your staff. I know you guys are putting in a tremendous amount of hours, and we thank you because the family of Elijah Dew wants it home, our community wants it home. And the hard work that you guys are putting in 24/7 is very much appreciated. And to all those other agencies that have come here and responded, and the ones that are coming to respond even tomorrow, thank you. Because our community appreciates that a ton, and we can't do it without you. So hats off to you guys. Really remarkable job you guys are doing in this investigation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
You know where you're at?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you know.
I'm not sure what I'm showing. Yeah, okay. Sorry, no, we're gonna fast forward. Is that coming through full screen, Rick?
Oh, for some reason we have a black circle now in the lower right corner.
Oh, yeah, we do, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I won't worry about that. Okay. You? Oh, that's on top of. So, presentation Thursday night at Leicester Public Library. Two candidate forums. So the first organized by League of Women Voters. This Thursday, the 7th, 7 p.m. That's in the Costco room at the Senior Center. So you got to pick between that EAB presentation.
EAB is at the community house too, it's been moved.
Oh, has it?
Yep, to Barringer Room. Same
That's
room.
right.
Yep.
That's right.
Just.
Yep. Thank you. Use book sale at the library, Thursday the 7th to Saturday the 9th. By the way, all of the crates for the exhibit on immigration or migration, human migration, arrived last week, and we'll talk about that in a later slide. The Main Street Great Trivia Contest this Friday in the Hamilton Community House Gym. TRBA Council Candidate Forum next week, Tuesday, March 12th. Also in the Barringer Room over at the Community House, 5 council candidates. Both of the candidate forums will be live streamed on the city website and Facebook and recorded and available for viewing afterwards. Parks and Rec has the city-to-city leprechaun hunt in cooperation with our green neighbors in Manitowoc. That's Tuesday, March 12th to Tuesday, March 19th. Check that on the Rec Department website. Fire Department fish boil is coming up. There's no black spots on the fish. There's on the screen here. And that is an annual project of Firefighters Local 423 and funds a lot of the great things they do in the community. And so that's Good Friday, 3 to 7 p.m. That's fish boil. I say fry. That's fish boil on tap. World on the Move, that exhibit again has arrived and it will be open for public viewing March 20th through April 23rd at the Leicester Public Library. I would mention, thanks to Jeff and his staff, the monthly meeting of the Sanctuary Advisory Council for the Wisconsin Shipwreck Coast Maritime Sanctuary is our turn to have it in Two Rivers. So that Thursday night, the 21st, they'll be getting the community room and all looking forward to touring the exhibit as well. We just want to remind folks that council meetings are available online and not tonight on cable, but generally on cable when we get back in chambers. And you can watch this if you either missed the meeting tonight or you want to watch it again. You can go to Facebook or the YouTube channel. That's all I have. Explore Two Rivers, lots of great things happening on the tourism front. Explore Two Rivers board meets tomorrow morning. That is my report. Thank you.
That was very quick and well done. Right through it just like that.
Jeff, we don't need to move it to the end of the meeting.
It's quick enough there. Still do good answer that quick.
I bet you do.
All right, and on to the consent agenda. Under A, we have a presentation of minutes. There are one, it is the city council meeting of February 19th, 2024. Recommended action is motion to waive that reading and adopt the minutes. Under B, minutes of meetings, there are two. It's a personnel and finance meeting of February 5th, 2024, and advisory rec board meeting of February 14th, 2024. Recommended action is motion to receive and file. Under C, applications and petitions, there are two. We have a temporary Class B retailer's license for Heartorama going on April 25th through the 27th in 2024 at the Community House Gym at 1710 West Park Street. We also have a temporary Class B retailer's license for Heartorama for May 2nd through the 4th, 2024 at the Community House Gym located at 1710 West Park Street. Recommended action is a motion to approve the application and authorize issuance of the license. And the recommendation for the consent agenda as a whole is a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Looking for a motion to do such. Thank you, Bill. Seconded by Bonnie. Any council discussion? See none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. On to 11, city council formal items. Under A, we have award of bid for Roosevelt Avenue reconstruction. The recommended action is a motion to award the bid to Mammoth Construction, and it's a low bid of $2,854,815.63. Looks like Matt is gonna give us an introduction. He's on his way up.
I was just gonna up in case you had a question.
Oh, well, you wanna give us an intro?
Gave you most of the, background before for the Roosevelt Avenue project, which I did, approximately 2 weeks ago. And, came in favorably. So roughly, the engineer's estimate was about, 3.1 million, came in at 2.8. We added some contingencies, brought it back up to 3.1, and that's what the assessments were based on. So recommendation from the public works staff and Town and Country is to recommend award of the contract and then construction as the apparent bill. There.
I have a curious question. So it came in under budget, but our letter that went out at $85 was under budget. We should have been 92.
Yep.
Was that because it was more expensive on the homeowner side and less on the city portion side? I.e. like storm, like laterals or stuff that's under the street for like stormwater?
Because of the wider intersections that we're closing up and which makes it unaccessible, you try and rate those costs across evenly. So those costs are actually a little bit higher.
Okay.
And we try to proportionately assess across the front foot. The water main is covered by clean water, safe drinking, and sanitary is the same thing, covered by DNR loans. So some of these costs are offset. Since we didn't get principal forgiveness, that also drives up the portion of assessment costs.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear because anyone listening might say, well, why the heck was it supposed to be higher, but bids came in under? That answers that question. Thank you. Anybody else? Questions for Matt while he's up here before we bring it back to council?
Just for a quick overview, the bid was 5.4% below the engineer's cost estimate. It's always great when you have 7 bids on a project like this. The range from high to low is about 13.6, so that's pretty tight. Second low is only 3% higher than Mammoth, and that was Vinton. I believe Vinton is identified sub to Mammoth. So 2 great local firms doing our big infrastructure projects.
All right, thank you. Looking for a motion to award this bid to Mammoth Construction. Thank you, Jeff. Second by Tim. Council discussions. Seeing none, roll call vote for Mammoth.
Jeff Duffy.
Aye.
Tracy Coe.
Yes.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Sherman-Lewis. Aye. Scott Beckmesser.
Aye.
Adam Mahowski.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Thank you for that. On to B, award of bid for irrigation system in Central Park West, which is a 2024 budget capital project. Recommended action is a motion to approve the bid from Steiny's Water Gardens LLC in the amount of $43,729.35. Am I getting Greg or Mike? Mike?
Not a ton to this one necessarily, but yeah, hopefully this summer we will be getting a nice new irrigation system in to the park. They let me know that really the damage to the sod out there will be pretty minimal, and they think they can even do that around concerts and inspections so that, we're avoiding any disruptions to events or anything out there. This was the only bid we got, but we've worked with Steinies and other projects, and so the work is good, and we like working with them. They, work with our irrigation systems that
Okay, so that's why kind of the work is extended out a little bit, because it will go around events, concerts and such.
I really had wanted it to be in spring into May, and they're like, well, no, that's our startup season, for getting irrigation systems going. So that was probably a little bit wishful thinking, but they sure made that they will do it as fast as they can, of course.
And this came in under budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay, the original ask, or what was in the capital, was $50,000, so we came in, 6,000 and some change ahead of schedule. So, very good work on that, thank you. Looking for a motion to approve that bid to Steiny's Water Gardens.
Want Tracy to make the motion?
Okay, Scott made the motion, second by Tracy. We'll make it, there we go. Any council discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, Amanda.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc. Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shamoulis.
Aye.
Scott Steckelser.
Aye.
Adam Mohawski.
Aye.
Jeff Dell.
No.
All right, motion does carry. On to C, motion carries 7-1. Sorry, I should state that. On to C, a resolution naming May 11th, 2024 as International Migratory Bird Day in the city of Two Rivers. The recommended action is motion to waive reading and adopt that resolution, correct?
Two Rivers is designated Wisconsin Bird City. I know Parks and Rec staff is working on the renewal application for that. And this resolution, for one thing, is required annually for that designation. Also a pretty big deal because Woodland Dunes Nature Center and the flyways along Lake Michigan, various habitat unique to this area, make our Two Rivers area a very important location for migratory bird traffic along the flyways. So enthusiastically recommend approval of the motion. And the Wisconsin Ornithological Society will be holding their annual conference here in Two Rivers this year. And that's really great because it coincides with Woodland Dunes' 50th anniversary.
Where does that happen, do you know?
That
TBD, to be determined?
I am sorry. I know they have arrangements with local lodging. I think Woodland Dunes is the venue for a lot of their meetings. And we'll want to roll out the red carpet and welcome those folks. Birders frequent the area and make their economic contribution.
Perfect. Looking for a motion on this.
I will make a motion to waive the reading and adopt.
Thank you, Tracy, seconded by Darla. Any other council discussion? Seeing none, it's a resolution. Amanda, roll call, please.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shamoulis.
Aye.
Scott Steckelser.
Aye.
Adam Mohawski.
Aye.
Jeff Dell.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. D is a resolution authorizing submission of Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation grant for funding to improve the West River Loft site. Recommended action, waive reading and adopt the resolution. Greg.
This application would be intended to assist with some of the extraordinary site development costs the developer has encountered there. Elizabeth can speak to that at further length if you like. This would not increase the city's funding obligations for the project. However, the city would be the pass-through funding entity, the applicant to WEDC, the entity that any of the project's paperwork has to be submitted to prior to disbursement of funds. I would note we just recently, Community Development Office has submitted closeout paperwork on our most recent prior Ivan Sites grant, which was for some of the work in former Paragon. This is that same program meant to assist with redevelopment of large lawn vacant industrial properties, which that site is.
Okay. Looking for a motion on this. Darla, seconded by Scott, thank you. Council discussion. See none, roll call vote, Amanda.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shamoulis.
No.
Scott Steckelser.
Aye.
Adam Mohawski.
Aye.
Jeff Dell.
No.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye. Motion carries 6-2. Thank you for that. On to E, discussion of draft amendment to city sign ordinance to establish a trial program to allow private business located in the B1 and B2 zoning districts to place decal-type signs on the surface of public sidewalks adjacent to their buildings. Recommended action is to provide feedback to the city attorney on terms of the draft ordinance with the goal of returning the ordinance for possible council action at the March 18th, 2024 meeting. That ordinance is in front of us now.
He said he'd do it, and he done did it. The city attorney has brought the draft back for discussion tonight. Again, this is not an action item, but the opportunity for some council feedback, hopefully leading to action on a one-year trial period for sidewalk decal signs this year, starting this year.
Okay, the important words here are draft. Another important phrase is working up the only and subject to revision. That's exactly what it is intended to be. I haven't been able to find ordinances of this kind after a pretty thorough search. So this is really my product. And what I'm attempted to do here is at least address some of the issues and items that I thought were of significance to the council in a way that was hopefully as clear as needed. I'm sure I missed some things. I'm sure things will have to be added if it needs work, but that's the whole idea. Well, the whole idea in bringing the draft to you is that you'd have a chance to look at something. And so we could explore what you consider to be important aspects of such a regulation and what should or should not be in there. I can go through this, try to go through this quickly to give you an idea of what I was dealing with. You'll notice that there are recitals, first couple of paragraphs. We don't normally see that in most ordinances that we adopt. The reason it's in there is that basically from the standpoint of the law, it's a good idea to explain the policy reasons behind adoption of an ordinance, particularly a sign ordinance that has application only in certain areas. So what I'm trying to do is explain that these are being allowed in the B1, B2 districts because if it is adopted by the council, it's adopting it because it attaches importance to what it is hoping they would provide, basically effective advertisements, residents, businesses, contributing to the general welfare of the city and tax base and things of that nature. I indicated it's on a trial and temporary basis. I didn't include a date as to when it would end, or no, I also didn't get into periods of the year in which they would be allowed either. Those are things that we can add. I didn't mean to ignore them. I was just trying to do my best to come up with the working draft. I try to define sidewalk decals in section 1. You'll notice I refer to the removable signs made from PVC-free aluminum foil base. I use that because that's what I encountered in most definitions and descriptions of the product I found by manufacturers who make them, basically. And supposedly PVC-free aluminum foil base is deemed preferable in some respects to vinyl. I don't know if it's extraordinarily expensive or more expensive, needlessly expensive, but I had to come up with some language because I think we have to define what these things are. The purpose of which, of course, is to advertise the business. And in this, or for purposes of this draft, I mentioned basically that for the promoting the sale, rental, or goods or services in a business adjacent to the sidewalk on which the decals are attached. Section 2 enumerates what I think are some pretty common sense requirements for the decals, that they have to be removed completely when a permit expires or at the time of expiration of the trial period, if it is not extended, shouldn't damage the sidewalk. While in place or doing installation and removal, have to be made of a textured non-slip material. Must be removed if loosened or damaged during the time of permitted use, have to be kept in good repair. Shall not impede pedestrian traffic. Kind of a catch-all at G there on the top of page 2. That they shall not violate any applicable federal, state, or local law, including but not limited to the ADA. I don't know, H there might be repetitive. Size, I really wasn't sure what to do with this. I was trying to operate based on what I had in terms of my minutes. In any event, it isn't written in stone. It can be modified however the council desires. I think we do want to have some indication in the ordinance of what an appropriate sign would be. And what I had in my notes was 24 by 24, at least in some cases. That's for a square though, obviously. And, I don't know if we or the council would want square signs only. Location that addresses the B1 and B2 districts. Sidewalk decals for purposes of this draft are to be installed in a single sidewalk panel in places closely as possible to the facade. Obviously, that's could be problematic in cases where we have multiple businesses operating in a single building. And I tried to draft a provision specific to that. That gets kind of complicated though, and I definitely need feedback from the council on that. Section 5, obviously we don't want any resemblance to official signage to prevent confusion. Section 6, I was trying to consider options available. I know it's the desire of the council that the city be protected from any liability here, and there are different ways of doing that. One way of doing it would be to require a cash bond or surety in favor of the city at the time of application in a particular amount. I left that amount open so we can discuss it. And the cash bond is for that purpose, to indemnify the city against any loss arising from installation of the decals. But I also indicated there that regardless of that amount, should damages exceed the stipulated amount, the applicant shall nonetheless agree to indemnify and hold the city harmless from any claims which exceed that. I just thought it might be a good idea to have an actual bond or surety we could look to for recovery of a certain amount, so we don't have to rely solely on the written agreement, which may not be backed up by sufficient assets to provide us with cover. Excuse me. Then I mentioned also that as an option, the use of an insurance policy in lieu of a bond or other surety. You know, we can combine all these together. We can impose as many requirements as we want to protect the city. We can have them do insurance, bond. We can have indemnification of the whole harmless. This, as I say, it's a working draft. I'm trying to give you some idea of the options.
Jeff, if the city stands an additional insurance policy, typically then we would get advance notice it's going to be canceled, say due to non-payment. So.
And I do recommend that we contact the city's insurer. I'd like to see whether they think the city would have coverage for these things. I just don't know.
We've not done that.
Because, you know, I think this is pretty new development in signage. I haven't been finding anything in the law that speaks to it. I haven't seen that they've been tested or litigated. So I'm kind of operating blind in certain respects here. So yeah, I'd be happy to fill this thing with with different ways in which the city is protected.
I've got a quick question on that part. What do we do about, what is it, sandwich boards?
Right.
Is there, do they have to, lift
Oh,
indemnity?
what do we do currently?
Yeah. I don't think
We
there is
call
like
it,
that.
there may not be any.
I don't think there's an insurance requirement, yeah, you're right, to do
So if they're-
projecting signs.
You're the trip over that sandwich,
You think so?
a lot,
Yeah.
you know,
So that does raise the question, do we want to propose it here?
I mean, if
If
we're,
decide this to
I think it should just be
be
crystal clear that this is business, this is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, have it all nice and tidy and legal.
we can do that,
But
we can
bond,
identify what was harmless.
Right, so
Yeah, I
that
think-
bond,
I don't like that, yeah, I know you have that, it's something that I personally don't, but we'll have to bring that up for the full council.
right,
No, I
But I would agree.
I'd like to double check that in the sign ordinance, but I really don't think
I don't
there's
think
any.
you have one, no.
And I think that's a good point. Number section 8, frankly, I'm not sure how to handle this. There will be buildings, there are buildings currently that have more than one tenant, or in which more than one business operates. I would think there would be an interest in controlling or limiting the number of signs which could be used in that case, simply because there could be so many that would essentially cover the sidewalk outside of a building. But if that's okay with the council, I'm not going to make any objection. But my thought was, in addressing situations, and you do see them, well, we know one case in a real estate office, and I think there are different instances in professional offices, sometimes particularly doctors, who have their own corporations and LLCs, or dentists who are affiliated with the same clinic. Does the council want them each to have a decal? Or does it make more sense to have a single decal simply because they are using the clinic as a facade, so to speak, for themselves and for their business? Or might it be a single assigned so-and-so clinic and then naming all the doctors or dentists or realtors? Is that a better way to do it? Caldwell Banker and then listing everyone they have instead of separate signs for Caldwell Banker, John Smith. Jim Jones, whatever.
Hairstyles.
Well, yeah, cosmetologists too, they do. And I don't know the answer.
Lawyers.
Lawyers. Lawyers.
But you know, I mean, if they're a business that is under an umbrella,
So that was my thought.
you know, it's like, if they're gonna be that, separate, they're gonna separate everybody out, it should be up on their own too. You know,
That was
why
my
just on the
thought.
sidewalk?
And What I was trying to do here in using business premise was try to account for that
Right.
situation. Where a business premises consists of leased area or area use, right? Maybe by more than one person operating the same, separate commercial activity. They may be sole proprietors, maybe LLCs or whatever. In that case, it occurred to me maybe one way of handling that is that each business premise installs one. Or if more than one entity or person uses the premise, rather than have the city decide how many decals they could own, maybe it's a better idea for them to decide how they want to handle it, what they want to pay for it. Do they each want to have their own little decal? Or would they prefer one with a single decal which mentions them, at least, if not their company, as operating under the umbrella, as you said. The effort there was to try to take that decision from the city and the city and have them just decide how much money they want to spend and things of that nature. Section 9 sidewalk repair and construction, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think I mentioned this before. There are going to be instances where sidewalks have to be repaired, maybe torn up. pipes have to be laid or services laid down to service a particular building. In that case, we don't want the owners of the signs or those that install them coming back to the city and saying, hey, you destroyed my advertising. You're gonna have to pay for it. So that was the idea behind here, is that the city shall have no liability for those damages. Section 10 is just a general, fairly common provision, conflict with other ordinances that, especially within the sign ordinance itself, which is a very extensive word. Decals, those which refer specifically to decals in this ordinance, which are not in conflict with other provisions in chapter 10, are controlling otherwise the general provisions of control. Section 11 is something, it's essentially a statement, the intent of which is to protect the city against someone coming in and saying, you are regulating message content here, which is definite next to constitutional law. And on that basis, the court would be able to apply what's called strict scrutiny to it, to the ordinance, and whether you're in a really loose situation where you try to say so-and-so decals or signs are okay or not okay because of a particular event. Now, whether that will work or not, I don't know, but it gives a court, if the event is reviewed, an idea that it certainly not to make that error, but that these are legitimate location, sizing, or installation, and legal provisions, which makes sense, given the desire to promote business in these particular areas. That's as far as I got. Definitely need stuff with respect to the penalty you want to assess. If we want a special permit process, and when they're trying to use the general permit provisions. And as I say, I'm sure I missed some stuff that you guys want to have in there. There it is, working draft.
Okay, I know I got comments, but I'll go to anybody else that hasn't first.
Okay.
Well, probably a question, is this gonna be self-police? Or are we gonna have to provide staff? I mean, because we're talking about, if they're damaged, they have to be removed.
Right.
And whatever, well, this is one of those where somebody calls in because they walk by the street. We do some of those other things,
Like this.
like, somebody, Brian, driving down the street.
That would probably have to be the case. I don't think we
Okay.
have the resources available.
If we want to
Help.
make that available.
So it's like anything else, it certainly would be self-police any more than any other ordinance.
Anybody else? I know Darla had some points, I'll let you go ahead with that, 6. What is that?
I think that, which one was it?
6 with the cash down.
Oh,
Indemnification.
yeah, I mean, I pretty much said it, we should, follow in step with the standard boards and just make it a level playing field. I think this is a really great start, and I know I appreciate it, and other businesses will appreciate the effort. And, we'll come back and revisit it in a year and see how it's gone, but I would be very curious to see how many people who want to participate. I didn't talk to Jason yet, to find out if he's gotten, I'll have it for next time. Yeah, I forgot to do that.
I agree, I don't know that we want a cash bond or anything like that. I think we should have something that identifies the city and holds it harmless. I think that would be prudent. I don't know how much I would, to be an additional assure, I don't know that that's a bad idea. I don't know if you can get that just for this sidewalk that the city is responsible, because it's a weird ownership there. It's the responsibility of the landowner, but yet it's city property. So I don't know how that works in the insurance world, but it would be interesting to see if that is something that we could do. So should anything ever come back, we could definitely be held harmless. That would be the only thing else that I'm looking at 6 is if you could be an additional insurer just for that.
Right.
Better question for someone in the insurance industry than myself. And then I had one more, and that was the placement of the signs. So are we forcing them to put it by the building, or are we allowing them to
I wasn't sure.
put it wherever they want?
Question.
I mean, not necessarily wherever they want, because they gotta apply with the ADA, but I would have no problem if it goes down the middle personally. As one, I don't know that I need it next to the building.
And that might be difficult if you have more.
Well, but they're using the appropriate material too.
Right, that's the reason they're using them.
And, yeah, but that could be right in the middle because they're.
Yeah, the thought behind that was just to keep it out of the daily travel portion of the sidewalk. Yeah, that's not something that, as I say, this is.
Yep.
Back to that comment that I had given earlier, we don't have anything in there that has to be your business on there that you're advertising, do we?
Well, the way it's worded currently, it refers to businesses that are operating within the building adjacent to the sidewalk on which the council.
In the definition.
Yeah. So it's the way it's worded, yeah, it does allow advertising, say, to be placed in front of traders, advertising, pool city.
Right, I don't know, I think that we should probably hold that out of there where you can have it somebody else, but in doing that, make sure that you're not gonna have somebody saying, okay, you can put a sign in front of mine, but, I want $100 for it. You know what I mean?
Because that's it, because it's a city, so.
Because it really doesn't make any sense to put one in front of your own.
Well, I mean, at times it could be depending on where you're at. Some people that may not know that you have carryout or that you, some of that stuff would be easy as they walk, for you to toss it on the sidewalk as they walk and see it. But yes, at the same time, it may not make as much sense for somebody to put their own in front of them.
Yeah, because you.
Each their own, I guess.
Whatever that business is, that's, they get the spot.
Lighting for these, you should have something in there because it's illegal for your light from your building to shine on the sidewalk, because it's a city sidewalk. Not that someone, that's later. That you would want light on it to see it, but actually they can't light it because the light from the business can't go on their side.
Cannot be illuminated.
Yeah.
How does that work with the sign that overhangs like a awning?
Yeah, maybe it's under.
It must.
I'm not entirely sure,
I just know there's ordinance against any light
we
which
should-
up and down.
We should double check that to make sure that that's not in there, because yeah, canopy then would be technically lighting the sidewalk.
and not to this topic, but one of the same businesses has a sign that projects onto the sidewalk, which is kind of cool.
You do see regulations on those primarily too. That they have to be a certain height.
Elizabeth, do you know if we have that in our sign code? Do you know offhand? If you don't, that's fine, I just didn't know if you do.
So do you mean, I'm just trying to understand exactly.
Matt might have something on that too, I'm not sure. He's standing on. Tells me he's got something.
You mean, is the question to illuminate the signs that we're discussing now?
To illuminate anything on the sidewalk is, I think, what Tim was alluding to.
So for the new thing, we don't have anything regulating what would be onto the sidewalk that we're discussing now. I mean, there are lights that are into new signs, but we don't have anything that regulates the lumens of the light or any kind of regulation now for the signs in terms of how bright it can be for lighting a new sign.
So we can light the sidewalk.
The only,
We don't have anything regulated on it.
the only provision is the lighting illuminating from the building cannot overpower or impair traffic.
Okay.
So it cannot be a spotlight that will shine into travel way, impede traffic of any sort. I know from the highway admission, doesn't like these rapidly moving signs because it's distracting, things of that nature. So, nothing overpowering and spotlight type, moving, basically nothing that's gonna create a hazard.
So anyone that shines a light on the sidewalk is good, as long as it stays on the sidewalk, it's not projecting out the curb. I would assume that would make sense, because we allow a lot of awnings that all have, most of them, not all, but have lights that all project onto the sidewalk.
Trailers for years.
Anybody else have anything else they want to add to that? Again, this ordinance is not something we're voting on tonight, we're just giving, Jack feedback and bring this back to us at our next regular meeting. Anything you want to see in this, or don't want to see in this?
Yeah, as pointed out as well, we're probably gonna need a companion ordinance amendment, not as long, I trust, but in the streets, the public works section of the code regarding use of public streets. So there may have to be something addressed in that title as well.
Do we want something in there, that refers to, it's on complaint based, but if it is deemed hazardous, the city has the right to remove that sign?
I don't-
like that because something like that did it all day. I thought there was something.
I don't think we did, I think we have talked about it, but I don't think it's in this document, I don't think, from reading it, I didn't see it in there.
It was noticed, talk to the owner.
Right,
Yeah.
or even if it's an emergency, I think Matt wanted the power just to rip it up and say, hey, he photo documented, so we just don't go around ripping up, we don't want people to think that we're just ripping up the signs because we don't like them, but, you know, picture and rip it up because it's a tripping hazard for whatever reason it was lifting and significant.
Like if it's on a weekend or something,
Yeah.
the business is closed or something.
But I mean, we'll work with the building owner or the business owner.
Right, if it's something that we can have them remove, if we prefer them and not our staff doing it anyway, but if it's something that's a complete hazard, we want the ability just to rip it up and hold us harmless for doing such. Anything else?
Are we gonna charge the permit or is it free for?
We do have a sign permit, I think now, somewhere in the realm of, I don't even know, $10. I think the sign permit should follow this as well, it is a sign. We charge for sample reports.
We don't, those are supposed to come in at the close of business each day.
So it's not a permanent sign, this would be a permanent sign.
There is a liability, the wind blows once in a while in downtown Two Rivers. And they just ski right down the side.
So because it's permanent, we should have that $10 sign fee to go along with it.
Do they bid it every year? Let's say that you have to replace it.
Once
It's not a new sign, it's just
The
a.
signs extending over the right of way might, most don't.
I think, we had a blade sign, and that one was, you had to do every year. If it's flush with the front of your building, it's one time. But if it's a blade sign, yeah, you have to do that more often.
Maybe you should say if you need to replace the decal, then you need to pay the $10 again, otherwise.
Right
If
now,
the sign lasts for 3 years.
For each replacement.
right now, 10.4.5 for the ordinance, awnings and signs requiring annual special permits. Any awning, sign, or advertising device extending into or over the right of way of any public street or alley shall require a special permit, therefore, from the zoning administrator, which shall be renewed annually upon payment of the permit. The annual permits shall expire on March 30. No prorating of the fees. Basically, that's meant to say that if you're extending over the right of way or in the right of way, didn't anticipate decal signs, but it's an annual permit. Whereas otherwise, you get paid once, it's on your building, and, you know, if it doesn't fall off or become, no longer applies to the business that's there, the city leaves you alone.
Does it state what the fee is?
I think it's $10.
That's what I think. I don't think that's too reasonable. I think it keeps us.
It is $10.
It is, and I think it keeps us in the realm of other signs that are in the right of way that are permanent. Otherwise, people are gonna come back and say, well, why do I gotta pay for my awning if he doesn't have to pay for that, or she doesn't have to pay for that? It's $10. Annual.
Are you sure it's only $10?
Elizabeth said that. I'm pretty sure it is. I think it's lower. I mean, if not, I don't think $10 is low. I'm not asking to raise it, I'm just saying, yeah, I think it is that low, yes. Anything else that anyone wants to see in here before we move on to bigger and brighter things? Negative? Alright, good. Alright, we'll see this back before us, it sounds like next week. Thank you, Jack, for all of your time you put into that. You drafted a nice ordinance, other cities will appreciate your work, I'm sure as well. Put yourself on the map.
Other city attorney.
Yes, they will.
We're breaking new ground.
Thank you so much.
New frontier. Thank you.
All right, on to F, consideration of city managers' appointments to the Aquatics Committee. Recommended action is a motion to approve the appointments as recommended by the city manager. That looks to be in front of us tonight.
We had discussed proposed appointees 1 through 7 at the work session last Monday. I had said I wanted to round it out with folks that have children and are currently aquatic, Tudor's Family Swim Center members, but not on board. So I'll take it from the top. The recommended appointees are Dan Forte from the Advisory Recreation Board, Catherine Dahlke, citizen, Mary Dawson, citizen, Kim Graves, citizen, Kathy Tagan and Christine Thalen, who both are on the Family Swim Center Board. Council President Lahusky is council rep and also on the AR Advisory Recreation Board. And then the two added since we last met, proposed Bridget Klein and Jamie Glant who agreed to serve. So I think this is a good group. 9's a nice number, it's not too big, and if for some reason a couple folks have to drop off because of schedules, you still have this group. So would recommend approval. This is an ad hoc committee. We expect within 3-4 months at the most that have recommendations to council. At this point, the basic direction they're given would derive from the resolution council passed.
I believe Mike Mathis would take charge of getting those meetings together, scheduled, and making sure that everything from our resolution will be talked about in that ad hoc committee. Looking for a motion to approve these appointments.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Tracy, seconded by Darla. Council discussion. All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so that motion is going to carry with Jeff abstaining due to, I would imagine, his wife being on the board, is that correct? Okay, so that motion does carry 7-0 with one abstain. On to 12 for information only. Greg?
Information only, I was consulting the sign code. Sign permit initial installation is $50, annual sign or awning permit, this is the install fees for all signs. Those that need an annual permit, the annual renewal is $10, as we discussed. Information only, next regular meeting is in 2 weeks. The agenda, I know, will include more than this, but I do anticipate we'll have a presentation from Accurate Appraisal, our contract assessors, regarding the evaluation project. Sure to be a popular topic of discussion for the balance of the year. And we will likely be bringing something to council on the first step in creating a special fund where we could borrow money from the state drinking water fund and loan it at a very favorable interest rate to folks to assist with the private side LSL, that service lab.
Well, you're on the topic of the reappraisal. Can we also talk about, and I think we've done it before, but I still hear that and I get talked to about it a lot. This is not a money grab from the city. This is, if somebody else's goes up 5%, that means throughout the rest of the city, someone's going down 5%. It's not the city collecting more taxes, but I think we should elaborate more on that so people have a good understanding. If theirs went up, somebody else's went down. It's not a money grab.
It's a very painful exercise in equity because dang it all, we're stuck with a form of taxation that's based on trying to determine the market value of your home. And even doing it right, it'll be ugly. It's just well. So that's work session on the 26th. I will be reaching out to Personnel and Finance Committee members to get together. We have a little trouble with scheduling with various staff for that, but sometime this week or next to talk about several items that are pending there. And I thought this one just rose to the level of an FYI, but the school district has requested that it Parks and Rec. This is for one day with a 3-person crew that deals with our rec fields, helping them with preparing the pitcher's mound and grading the infield for a new baseball field for use at the high school. They could be using that starting this spring, which is a year earlier than what the agreement was with the city council, because, that's great. That would allow taking the mound out at Walsh and allowing the use of Walsh Field for softball, which is a lot more demand for. And also, while we do anticipate the city, per our agreement with the district, will continue to use the fields north of L.B. Clark School. Our Parks and Rec Director, Mike, tells me, at least as things stand up there right now, it probably isn't going to be in real great condition for play this summer. It's probably needs some grading and seeing the outfield areas. So if anyone objects strongly to it, I'll schedule a special meeting, but it's 3 people for one day with another public entity. Best yet, and further to the goal this council set. So, okay, that's all I have. There is no closed session tonight.
All right, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jeff, seconded by Darrell. Council discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you, and good night. Motion carries.